Hello again everyone. Today I'll be doing another coaching session in this video for a summoner named D-Trump President on the North American server. Similarly as in my other coaching sessions, I will be looking at my constructed term macro tips. Macro tips is the term I have given to those pieces of game knowledge which will not only apply to one specific game but will be able to be applied to all games based on its general nature. And therefore this information can be applied in such a way that you'll be able to improve your decision making in different aspects of the game rather than mostly focusing on the mechanical side. And so you'll be able to apply this information to all games rather than only focusing on a single game. So I've constructed 10 macro tips for this summoner in this coaching session. 9 macro tips, and at the end I have placed an overall analysis which will give you a total view of the things that you need to do in order to improve your play and be able to apply the macro tips constructively and effectively. So I'm going to start off by looking at the match history of the specific game which I will be analyzing today. In this match history, you can see that you all have on your team Volibear, Talon, Misfortune, Janna, Karma, while the enemy team has Yavin or Jarvan, Graves, Talia, Ashe, and Blitzcrank. By just looking at the match history itself, you can see that your team has around the same team advantage in terms of team fighting. So you all will both be on an even level playing field in team fighting, regardless of how you perform in the game. However, you can improve this specific ability to be able to win a team fight by improving your lead in such a manner that your team has an advantage in gold and experience, and therefore you're able to channel this lead in a way where you will be able to have the advantage in a team fight rather than your team being at a disadvantage or at an even level than the enemy team. And so I will look at the first macro tip I have written. It says you should always perform a pre-game analysis prior to the start of the game in order to know your pathing as well as your and the enemy's win conditions. So not only your win conditions but also the enemy. So in this specific game, the pre-game analysis will be based on you ganking Karma, Jarvan, provided that he is pushed up. He most likely in this specific matchup of Karma versus Jarvan, it is going to be an even level due to the fact that Karma has good wave clear, while Jarvan has also good wave clear by nature of his abilities. So in this lane, depending on how far Jarvan is pushed up, and provided that he uses his gap closes, you will be able to gank him. Only in those situations you can gank this lane, if he's pushed up to a large extent and that he has used his gap closes. Provided that in mid lane that Talia similarly is pushed up to a large extent, you can also gank this lane. However, this lane might be one of the more difficult lanes to gank. For bot lane now, this lane is probably the best lane for you to gank. Not probably, this is the best lane you can gank due to the fact that your laners, Janna and Misfortune, are not going to be pushed up to a large extent to the enemy's towers. Rather, it's going to be the opposite because of the fact that Ashe has a large amount of wave clear and Blitzcrank has more pressure in a lane such as this rather than Janna. And so you want to apply your most pressure in the bottom lane. You need to apply all this information in the pre-game analysis and stick to it in each game. So you should be camping bottom lane and ganking top, provided that Jarvan has used his gap closes and is pushed up to a certain extent. Similarly with mid lane. Also, in addition to this, you would want to drop a control ward and other additional wards near the bottom side river. This does not apply to the top side river due to the fact that you don't necessarily need to protect Karma. If Karma is going to get ganked, she can most likely get away with her speed boost built into her kit. So you need to analyze the game knowledge applying to each champion's skills or abilities, and therefore you will be able to know which lane you should protect, which lane you should gank. So you need to perform a pre-game analysis prior to the start of the game, and then you will be able to snowball your lead to a great extent since you have a guide in each game. So this is a very important macro tip. And your win conditions for this game is to channel your lead into your ganks And then after you do that, you'll be able to have an advantage on the enemy due to the fact that you have a greater lead than them. And then you'll be able to win team fights and therefore siege towers. But you want to also, each time you get a gank, you want to apply your pressure in the lane by trying to take an objective of some form or nature. Give you towers, dragon, Rift Herald, or Baron. I'll now look into the replay itself in order to go into the macro tips 2 to 9. I believe the first macro tip will be seen at minute 4 in the game. So I'll just fast forward to this timestamp. About to approach now. I will just watch what you do first before I go into the macro tip itself. So you path through the river, through the bush, and to gank him. And it ends up not being a successful gank because he flashes away. As you could have seen, what I've discussed previously, Jarvan has to use his gap close in order for you to gank this lane, which he does do. So this was a perfectly fine decision. However, your pathing is problematic, which is what I have discussed in the second macro tip. This is probably one of the major mistakes. You need to take the best ganking path when you are executing a gank in order to secure a kill. As you can see, he uses gap close here, so I will now go into the macro tip itself. You should always look for the best possible ganking path. This is seen at minute 4, which I am looking at now. Pathing through Tribush would have 100% secured the kill on Jarvan since he already uses his capabilities. Additionally, had you pathed through the Tribush bottom lane, which is this bush here, you would have had an increased chance of securing a kill rather than wasting time pathing in the correct manner after the first attempt. I believe you eventually end up pathing through the bush and you end up securing the kill, but this is wasting time, and so you want to be as efficient as possible. Actually, this is seen at minute 525. The second part where I said you end up pathing back in the correct manner after pathing in the wrong way initially. So what I mean here is instead of pathing through this bush here in the river, you should have pathed around him through the Tribush, and therefore you'll be able to cover greater distance. In this instance, Karma is not going to die from Jarvan. It's very unlikely. And in order for you to secure this kill, especially because he's already used his capabilities, so he has no ability to get onto Karma since his ability is on cooldown. So the best bet for you would have been, instead of pathing through this bush in the river, should have pathed around the Tribush right here and walked through the lane, and therefore you'll be able to cover greater distance, and then you'll be able to get a perfectly executed flip of Jarvan. And so this would have avoided him flashing away, since you're able to cover greater distance, and then you would have 100% secured this kill and snowballed your lead, which is all important, and it is discussed in one of your problems where you have the lead but you don't know what to do with it. But you need to get the lead first. There's many instances when you could have got this lead to a great extent than you already do get it. So this is important information. So as I said already, this piece of information here, I said additionally, had you path through Tribush bottom lane, this is seen at timestamp 525. I apologize for already discussing it. This is seen at this timestamp. So I will now look at timestamp 525 to show you what I mean by this macro tip. So I will just watch what you do first before I go into the macro tip itself. You path through the lane, path through Tribush, and into the lane. This does not end up working. Then you end up going out of vision. You end up going out of vision from the enemy, and then you end up trying to execute the gank a second time. You might not realize it, but this is wasting time by you returning to a lane when you could have gotten the kill off by pathing in the correct manner firstly, rather than trying to get the gank off then going back. And not in addition to this, being that this is most likely in a game where it is not too of a high elo, provided this was in a higher elo game, this most likely would not have worked since the enemy knows your location and they wouldn't have called for such a double gank or an additional gank. So you want to be as efficient as possible and execute it correctly in the first manner, which is what I discuss here. Had you pathed through Tribush bottom lane, you would have had an increased chance of securing a kill rather than wasting time pathing in the correct manner after the first attempt. I mentioned be patient with your decision making to increase efficiency and enhance your lead. You do get a kill onto Blitzcrank. However, there's a likelihood that you could have maybe gotten a kill onto Ashe as well, provided that you had taken the correct ganking path. I realized that the enemy had warded this bush, I believe, the Tribush. Yes, the enemy did ward the Tribush. However, provided that they didn't react, they reacted to you pathing. However, if you had went through the Tribush and provided that it was not warded, in all situations this bush would not be warded, and you always want to take the best possible ganking path. I hope you understand what I mean by this. So you should have pathed through the Tribush and you would have covered a greater distance, and so the enemies would not be able to escape as greatly. So even if this wasn't warded, this would have been even more of a success than I am discussing. So you should have pathed through the Tribush here rather than pathing through the lane, and you would have covered greater distance, and then you would be able to flip the enemy much more successfully than you are able to do by pathing through the lane. So you always want to take this into account, be patient with your decision making, and this will increase the efficiency. I'll now look at minutes 6:10 to 6:35. I believe it is here. Hold on a moment. I believe the software has frozen. Might need to relaunch it. I apologize for this. So I'll just relaunch the software. Just give me a few minutes. It will relaunch soon. And I'll be able to proceed with the macro tips. Again, I apologize for this inconvenience. Okay, so the game is loading back up right now. It will be too difficult to edit this all out, so it is better that you just skip to the timestamp where this is completed. I'll mention the timestamp in the description. Okay, so we are back into the game now. I apologize again for the inconvenience. Okay, so I'm going to minute 6:10. Okay. So here you can see that you're pathing through the bush to attempt to get a gank onto the Ashe. However, you can see Ashe's location. Provided, I understand you're trying to sneak up on Ashe, since you're pathing through this bush and then you're going to path into this bush. However, provided that MF walks up to here, they will see you pathing into the bush. And since Ashe is at this distance in the lane, she's going to see you if you walk into the bush nevertheless. So this is not going to work in most scenarios. And this is just a wasted effort and you're wasting time. Jungle is all about efficiency. Provided that you did not know that she warded into here, this would have still been a bad decision because you are simply just wasting time. This is never going to work. She's too close to a tower, and even if you do get a successful flip off, this would only work if you had flash to flip her. Ghost is not going to be enough to flip her and get a successful gank off. I mentioned that this took you from timestamp 6:10 to 6:30, and so what this means is you attempted to force an additional gank after already ganking the lane, provided that the minion wave position is not in your favor, where I mentioned that Ashe is close to her tower, and so this is provided due to the minion positions, and so you're just wasting time. You wasted a solid 20 seconds, and this all adds up in the end. You must be efficient. Gaining a lead doesn't only come from pressuring lanes, but also from farming. This is what I mentioned at, I believe, timestamp at 12 minutes. Actually, no. This is not only seen at timestamp 12. What I mean by this is that you were trying to force a gank, which is what is seen at the 20 seconds you wasted. And I say that in gaining a lead doesn't only come from pressuring lanes through the ganks, but also from farming. The bulk of your experience and level gains comes from clearing jungle camps, which will propel your lead into the mid to late game. Provided that you had followed this, you would have not only been able to get an experience advantage from middle lane minions, but also from the enemy jungle, which is what is seen at timestamp 12. You end up pathing into mid lane and you're getting a good amount of experience. However, you could have also ended up, I believe, going into the enemy jungle to take some of his camps. You can see here, you wasted time in this specific period trying to get another gank off when your laners go into the lane. You see Graves top lane, as you can see here. You end up pathing through here to try and get a kill onto the Ashe, but this is just wasting time, because likely that this happening on your own is slim, and this is just wasting time. What you want to do is you want to bulk up your experience gains when you can. And you see Graves top lane, and so you want to use this to your advantage and walk into his jungle immediately to take his camps. I believe you don't even bother walking into his jungle to see if he has any camps up. As you can see here, his blue is up, his wolves is up, and his gromp. You could have had 3 of these camps provided that you walked into his jungle and tried to clear them. Once you see the enemy jungler on an opposite side of the map, you want to go into his jungle and take his camps, as these camps are uncontested. So you always want to use this to your advantage. As you can see, you end up taking mid lane minions, but you could have had not only mid lane minions, which will crash into the enemy tower, but also you could have had 3 camps in the enemy bot side jungle, since Graves spends a considerable amount of time in the top lane, as you can see here. So you could have placed yourself on a larger experience gap than the enemy jungler is able to. As you can see here, you were level 8, while the enemy jungler is also level 8. But you could have been to a higher level, maybe even level 9, provided that you were taking his camps. As you can see, yes, you would have been able to reach level 9. So you always want to use the knowledge of the enemy jungler to your advantage. As I mentioned, provided that you had followed this, you would have not been able to get an experience advantage from the middle lane minions, but also from the enemy jungle. So I'll now go into the 4th macro tip, which is basically emphasizing what I already discussed. Always clear the enemy jungler's clamps, provided that you're on the opposite side of the map, or not in a position to, provided that he is on the opposite side of the map, or not in a position to contest said camps, or you look for a gank, provided that it is available. So you want to use the information of the enemy jungler to your advantage. That is, you execute a gank which is not contested by the enemy jungler, or you go into his jungle to take additional camps and therefore gain an experience and gold advantage. Experience advantages are very important when you are in any lane, but specifically in the jungle where you cannot get catch-up experience through not clearing your jungle camps, but specifically only from ganking. Only ganking is not what you should be doing as a jungler. So I will just look at timestamp 8:50 and 9:05 to emphasize my point. Yes. As you can see here, you are at your blue buff. You have a ward on Dragon. And because you have this ward on Dragon, you see where the enemy laners, or rather the enemies, are. You see Ashe, Blitzcrank, and Talia here. You also see Graves. Graves is on very low HP. And they end up getting a successful gank off, or rather a successful collapse on your team. But you need to use this information to your advantage due to the fact that you are not there to assist. So you see the enemies here. So what you should be doing, instead of clearing your blue buff now, after you clear your wolves, you should immediately, as soon as you see the enemy jungle on the map, go into his jungle, invade his jungle, and take as many camps as he has up. As you can see here, Graves is doing a very poor job of managing his camps in the jungle, and he's just focusing on objective securing. But you need to balance ganking with farming. Ganking and farming together increase your goal and experience gains above the enemy. So you need to abuse the fact that he is not farming optimally. As you can see, he only has 37 CS while you have 45. You should immediately go into his jungle, take his raptor camp, take his red buff, and take his golems. He is not going to be able to get back to these camps in time in order to contest them. So you need to use this to your advantage in all scenarios, not only in this case where you see him on the opposite side of the map. Instead, you end up farming your blue buff, which is essentially just wasting time, because this blue buff is uncontested. He's not going to come and invade you with this blue buff. You need to use what you have to your advantage and take his camps. This is all very important information. You need to apply it to every game. I think this is also said at timestamp 905, which I've mentioned. Yes. It's just emphasizing the fact that you see him on the map for such an extended period of time while you are just clearing your blue buff. So you need to use this information to your advantage and take his camps. I mentioned here, this is a major mistake. This is probably one of your biggest mistakes. You must always capitalize on the enemy jungler's position. This is very important. This relates to invading and to getting off successful ganks, not only to invading. As mentioned by yourself, ignoring this concept inhibits the transferring of your lead to a win. You might have a lead, but you're not abusing your lead. You need to abuse your lead once you have this lead, after obtaining a lead in the early game. This is also seen at the 1530 mark, which is what emphasizes what I'm already seeing based on CS gains. 1530 is seen at this timestamp. I'll just show you the scoreboard, and I want to show you some valid information relating to CS. As you can see here, Graves has 70 CS, while you also have 70 CS. This should never be the case. Graves has pulled off much more ganks than you have pulled off, and because of this, you should have an experience gain by nature of your ability to catch up on experience through CSing in the jungle. As you can see here, you are both level 9. Level 9 on Volibear and level 9 on Graves. This shouldn't be the case. You should be at least level 10 by now and have at least one level advantage on him. So you need to improve your pathing through the jungle and the clearing of camps when you know the enemy jungler's position. I mentioned you only have 70 CS, similarly as Graves, which is severely below the threshold of CS you should be aiming for. As well, this shouldn't be the case since Graves has executed more objective-focused plays. Also seen at 1830, which I will show the timestamp of. As you can see here, at 1830, you have 86 CS while Graves has 91 CS. This shows that Graves is farming better than you now, which should never be the scenario given the fact that he has ignored many of clearing of his camps, while you have had the advantage where you could have invaded his jungle to take his camps and you could have cleared more of your camps too. So you need to balance farming with ganking. So I say, also seen at 1830 where Graves gains a lead on your CS. Always clear all the camps if you are near them and the enemy jungler's camps rather than sacrificing your lead on potentially unproductive ganks. So you should be forcing ganks, you should be focusing on increasing your CS gains and your experience on a whole due to the fact that you are clearing your camps efficiently. So I'll now go on to macro tip number 5, which is not specifically shown in the replay by timestamp, but rather you should always utilize the ping system and get into a habit. This is not only to warn your team of the enemy jungler and or future fight which isn't in your favor, but also to increase your self-awareness. By pinging, by using the caution ping, the warning ping, and or the assistance ping, you are, and even the on your way ping, you are warning your teammates of what is to come in the future. And not only this, you're making yourself more aware. So you're being more conscious of what you are doing and what is happening in the game. So because of this, you barely use pings in this game. Use it every now and then, but you need to be more consistent. Consistency is key to climbing and improving your play as a whole. So you need to utilize the ping system. You also need to be able to determine when a fight is not in your favor based on a number disadvantage on your team, or rather a greater pressure in the early game, as can be seen on your team in this game, where your team has Janna and Miss Fortune, which is much weaker than is a Ashe and Blitzcrank in the early game. So you need to warn your teammates not to engage a fight which is not in their favor if you see it on the map and you need to spam pings. Pinging is much more efficient and a much better way to inform your team of decisions rather than simply typing it out. Typing is unproductive. So you need to increase your habit of using the ping system. I will now look at timestamp 9:20 to discuss macro tip number 6. I see you use Ghost here. The use of Ghost here is very unproductive, and there's no reason to use Ghost from such a far distance. Not only are you using such a far distance, you can see where the enemies are. You are trying to get a cheese kill onto the enemy team that are low on HP, but you cannot see all the enemies. You do not know where all the enemies are. As you can see, if I remove the Fogger Boy, you can see Talia is also here. And even Ash is here, provided that she doesn't back if she sees you coming. So you need to be self-aware of and improve your map awareness. So you cannot, and also this, you can't be using Ghost from such a far distance. If you're going to use Ghost, use it when you're getting closer to the area where you want to execute a successful collapse. And in this situation, this is a very unproductive collapse because you do not know where all the enemies are. You can only see 2. You're using the knowledge that the 2 enemies are low on HP, but you cannot do this because you previously saw all the enemies on drag. So this is a very bad use of a summoner spell. Using Ghost in this position was a terrible decision, as the summoner spell is crucial to your ganking and engaging, and it being on cooldown hinders your lead transfer, similarly as the problem you have discussed. Additionally, you're unaware of the enemy team's position, so if you did attempt to get a kill, as you did successfully, you would still be collapsed on, and this isn't worth it. Sacrificing a 1v1 where you get 1 kill and the enemy kills you is not worth it. Each death diminishes your initial lead and passes it over to the enemy team. It is a very good habit to watch your replays after each game, which is what I'm doing here in your replay analysis, but you need to get into the habit to do it yourself, where I specifically say you should look at each death and decide on how you could have avoided dying, thus increasing your lead. As this time you have done nothing with your initial lead other than clearing the enemy bot side's blue/grump once. You did it once in the replay. Had you have not used Ghost earlier, you would have been able to catch up to Ash in the near future gank. This gank happens after you execute this play. And most likely you would have killed the enemy bot lane. This includes both Blitzcrank and Ash, and you would have been opened up for your team to secure bottom lane tower as the first tower in the game. And by being able to transfer your lead from a kill advantage to a objective advantage based on towers is very important. I will show you where this happens specifically. As you can see, you end up chasing for a kill where you do not know where the other enemies are on the map. And so you get collapsed on. You end up getting a kill onto Blitzcrank, however it is not worth it in the end because you are throwing your lead away. You end up getting killed by Graves, I believe. This is not worth it in the end. So you end up killing Graves. And this is very disadvantageous. You're not being productive by decreasing your lead through dying. So I'll now go on. I'll just fast forward to show you what I mean by the gank that happens bottom lane. Where if you had Ghost, the gank would have been much more successful. Okay, so there's about to approach. I'll just let it play out. So you end up pathing towards the lane. This is perfectly fine. This is a very good executed gank. You end up walking into the bush where the enemy cannot see you approach. As you can see, the enemy cannot see when you path into this bush. This is a very good approach to this gank. You need to apply this principle. So you see that Ash flashes away. However, provided that you did not waste your Ghost in the previous try to collapse, you could have had a Ghost and you would have been able to counter-react Ash's flash, and therefore you would have been able to get a successful flip onto Ash. And not only this, but you would have probably been able to kill both Blitzcrank and Ash. I believe you do end up killing Blitzcrank. Yes, you end up killing Blitzcrank. So if you were able to kill Blitzcrank here, you would have most likely also been able to kill Ash, provided that you were able to get a successful flip off if you had Ghost. So you don't want to loosely use your summoner spells, which is emphasized in macro tip number 6. Always use the which is what I mentioned here. most likely kill the enemy bot lane, which would have opened up your team to secure bottom lane tower. So not only would you be able to kill both Ashe and Blitzcrank, but you would have been able to push up this minion wave, and you would have 100% been able to secure this tower and given your team an advantage with first tower gold. So you always want to transfer your lead where you can. Provided that you did get kills, you want to transfer this to a tower, or rather an objective, be it Rift Herald, Baron, Dragon, or any other towers on the map. I'll look at macro tip number 7, timestamp 13 and 17. So I'll just fast forward to timestamp 13. So, as you can see here, I'll just put on the vision for you. This is one of the more major mistakes you make in this game also, in addition to the other mistake I mentioned earlier with you are not clearing the enemy jungler's camps and abusing the fact that you know where he's located. You end up having your 4 mid lane. The enemy team only has Graves up in that can recuperate in the mid lane to try and contest any tower being taken. You have Jarvan on the enemy top, you have Blitzcrank and Ashe bottom lane. They are taking 1 tower, while you are in mid lane and they are only taking a tier 1 tower, while you are able to take a tier 2 tower in mid lane, provided that you stayed grouped as 4. You are grouped as 4 and you would have been 100% been able to take this tower uncontested due to the fact of the enemy team's map position. You have a map advantage here. So you need to abuse the fact that you have this map advantage. You collapsing on the enemy team on bot lane is a kill focus decision. You should focus on objective focus decisions prior to kill focus decisions. You could have easily taken tier 2 tower here in mid lane, and so you would have had an advantage by nature of a gold increase and an objective increase. So this is a very major mistake you make. Always use the enemy team's map position to your advantage in comparison to the enemy team's map position. The decision to collapse on bot lane is a kill enforced decision rather than an objective focused decision. You were grouped as 4 mid, while the enemy team only had their jungler up, which gives you a major numbers advantage. You could have most likely taken the tier 2 middle tower in addition to the tier 1 tower, which you've already taken, and this would have enhanced your lead transfer, which similarly applies to the problem you have discussed. An example of when you use your number advantage is correctly seen when your enemy team secures Rift Herald, and this must be done in all situations. This is seen at timestamp 17, when I believe you are grouped as 4, and you end up taking Rift Herald because you have a number advantage, which contrasts with what I have discussed there. But you do not use your number advantage to your lead. You see you have your entire team here taking Rift Herald, which is a number advantage, and so this is a perfect decision. You need to apply this decision to all instances, and you need to use the fact that you have a map advantage to the enemy team. So I just emphasized it by showing you the correct manner you should be doing it at this timestamp. I'll now go on to the last 2 macro tips, and then I'll discuss an overall analysis of what you can do to improve your play and generally win more games and climb the solo queue ladder. This is seen at timestamp 14:30. So I'll just move on to this timestamp. So you are bot lane. I'll just rewind it a bit. Okay. So this is fine that you are trying to get a pick onto Blitzcrank. It ends up being successful. However, now you see Ashe is low on HP. And what you end up making as a decision is you end up trying to chase Ashe to get a kill due to the fact that you know you have a speed boost by nature of your abilities. However, this is a very unproductive play. Even if you were to get a kill on Ashe, you are decreasing your objective focus decision making and increasing your kill focus decision making. Or your objective focus decision making should always be above your kill focus decision making. Even if you were to get this kill, you need to apply what can I do on the map now in order to increase my objective control over the enemy team. Which is what I mentioned here. Never chase a kill provided you're unaware of the enemy team's position. I said that even if you were to get this kill, this would not have been a good decision. However, you could have gotten collapsed on here, and this would have decreased your lead even further. By you decreasing your, or rather increasing your death timer, I believe it does end up happening. You get collapsed on by Graves, as you can see Ashe turns, and you are decreasing your lead, which you have secured in the early game. And so basically you have almost no lead after you die here because you are decreasing your lead gradually And so overall, it all adds up. As you can see, you do die here. This is a very major mistake. I say it's a rookie mistake, and again, a kill focused approach is applied rather than an objective focused approach. Provided you didn't chase for the kill into Ashe, you would have secured bottom lane tower with ease, and then you could have asked your bottom lane to assist you in clearing dragon, since you have a pressure advantage and thus enhancing your objective lead. At this point, you should have taken bottom lane tower and dragon, but instead you deny yourself of both since you died, thus diminishing your lead further. At one point you had a lead on Graves, however due to this mismanagement of your lead, it eventually levels off, which is what I have discussed previously with the match history, where you don't want your team to be leveled off because your team fight will be comparative to the enemy team, and so you're putting yourself at a disadvantage and you will not win team fights successfully as you would do if you transferred your lead properly. So you need to take away this kill-oriented decision making and put a map-oriented decision-making based on objectives. As you see, the enemy, your wave is pushing into the enemy. Provided you did not die here and you did not chase for Ashe, instead you would have been able to secure this bottom lane tower. And since you have an advantage overall, you would have been able to secure Dragon, which is Infernal Drake, which is the best Dragon. And so you would have had both, not only this bottom lane tower, but also Dragon. So you want to focus more on objective control rather than kill-oriented control. This is another major mistake. There's 3 major mistakes which I mentioned, which is this mistake, the mistake where you don't use your team's map position to the advantage, and the fact that you do not clear your jungle camps efficiently, and you do not also clear the enemy junglers camps efficiently once you know the enemy's team's position in the jungle. So you need to abuse the information that you have and use it to your advantage. I will now discuss the last macro tip, which is seen at timestamp 1735. So I'll just fast forward to this timestamp. As you can see here, you end up engaging a fight, and the fight ends up being not as productive as it could have been. You do end up getting a kill onto Blitzcrank, I believe, but this could have been much more productive. The reason why this wasn't productive is because this was a bad decision to initiate this gank to begin with. I will explain why I say this is a bad time to initiate a gank. You can see you are over here. I'll just put it so you only see your vision. You know where Talia is. However, you do not know where the rest of the enemy team is besides Jarvan. You do not know where Ashe is, you do not know where Blitzcrank is, and you do not know where Graves is. So they can easily collapse on you here. You need to use your map awareness to your advantage. And you cannot initiate a gank successfully like this. This is not going to work provided that you can get collapsed on easily since you're not using your map awareness to your advantage. So you end up getting collapsed on by Blitzcrank, and I believe you even get arrowed by Ashe. This would not have happened at all provided you did not initiate this gank to begin with. This was all in your decision making. You need to avoid not using your map awareness to your advantage. This would have been much more successful provided that you use this information, which I mentioned. Never engage a fight provided that you do not have the map knowledge for the enemy team, thus resulting on their team collapsing on you due to a number disadvantage. This is a major mistake. Another mistake added to the other 3 major mistakes. You must avoid this in future games in all similar situations, as dying or becoming low on health. You do not end up dying, but you are very low on health in the end of this fight. And so this diminishes your initial lead to almost as if there was no reason in having this lead. So it's almost as if you did not create this lead in the early game to begin with. As you have, over these course of these macro tips, you have decreased your lead sequentially, and therefore you end up mismanaging this, and you're not able to apply your win condition where you're able to group once you have a lead and win team fights. So you need to apply this information into all games and use these macro tips I've mentioned. This is very important. I really hope you use this information to your advantage and you apply it. So you need to increase your map awareness, which is what is said by macro tip number 9. Only engage fights based on this map awareness. So I'm now looking into the overall analysis, and this would conclude the replay analysis and the coaching session for this summoner. I say avoid making kill-focused decisions and replace this with objective focused decisions, that is Towers, Dragons, Repel, and Baron. I already emphasized this in most of the macro tips. You need to apply this to all your games. Stop being kill oriented rather than being objective oriented. Additionally, abuse the enemy jungler's position by securing uncontested ganks or clearing his jungle camps, which will propel your lead and thus transfer it by increasing both your gold gain as well as your experience gain, while denying the enemy jungler of these, which is what you need to do by abusing the enemy jungler's position. After transferring your lead effectively by following all the macro tips, you should group and siege towers, as your team will have an overall lead, and thus once following macro tip number 1, which is the pre-game analysis, your team will come up on top. So this is basically all I want to discuss in this replay analysis. There's no sense going through the rest of the replay, as all the information you needed to see has been discussed. So this will conclude my replay analysis. I really hope you learned something from this coaching session, and I hope you apply all these macro tips to your future games. If you do, I guarantee you will improve your play, and you will improve as a player overall, and thus climb the ranks ladder, and you can easily get to your desired goal. So I again thank you all for listening to this coaching session, and I hope to help you all again in the future. Thanks for listening. See you next time.